Hello there and welcome back. So it's been a while since I recorded the last episode in this series. I had a lot of things going on in my life, but now I really want to make some time to make new episodes. I always felt bad that we did not finish creating this game. There are a lot of features that we still did not implement, and I'm really excited to continue where we left off. So this project is in the same state it was in part number 9, nothing changed. The only thing that I changed was changing the icons before I started this recording. So if you remember, we had these lame icons for the axe, stick, and stone. And all I did was buying this resource pack, okay? And it's a really cheap pack and it has some nice icons. So it's not any kind of commercial, but if you want to follow with me and you want to use these icons, you can buy this pack. So before we start working on today's episode, let's just do a little overview of what we created so far. So we have this terrain we created, we have some trees, we have some rabbits with a simple AI script, and we have the ability to pick up items. So if we hover over them, we can see their name, and if we click, they are picked up. We can also see this animation in the bottom left corner. And if we press on I, we can open the inventory panel and we have our items. So we can also drag and drop them. Then if we press on C, the crafting panel is opened up and we have one category for now. And inside this category, we have one blueprint, and it's the axe blueprint. And also we can see how many items we have of each. For example, we have 2 stones in our inventory, so we can see it over here. And now if we want to craft this axe, we need 3 stones and 3 sticks. So let's pick up a few more resources. And now we can see that we have enough. So this button appears over here. If we click it, then the axe is created. But right now, there's nothing we can do with this axe. There's no equipping system or something like that. And that's something we're going to take care of in the next episodes. In this episode, we want to create something that is very important for a survival game, and that's the status bars. So in every survival game, you can find some kind of status bars, and usually we have multiple status bars. For example, there's a health bar. You will find it in every survival game, but then it really varies on the game. So sometimes we have energy bars or food bars, hydration bars. So in this game, I wanted to make it really simple. We're going to have a health bar, of course. Then we're also going to have some kind of a food bar, right? I'm going to call it calories bar because it's actually going to count the amount of calories we have. And we're going to have a simple hydration bar that will deplete as time goes by. And then if we drink some water, it will refill. So very simple. Of course, you can take everything we're doing here and change it. You can call it whatever you want. You can implement your own code. So if you don't like something that I'm doing with these bars, you can do it your way. I'm just showing you the main way to create this. And of course, you can do whatever you want in your game. So the first thing we're going to take care of is the actual UI. So inside the canvas, we're going to create a new empty object and we're going to call it status bar area. Okay, so this object will simply hold all of our bars. So now if we double click on this and we go to the scene tab, it should bring us to our UI. Okay, so this is the UI. It's hard to see because of the background, but this is our UI. We can make the crafting screen be visible just for reference. Okay, so let's zoom out. Okay, so this is the UI, right? Not the small one we saw. Now if we double click on the status bar, it just zooms in. Let's zoom out. And now let's position it somewhere. Some games put it in the bottom. We have the alert at the bottom, so we're going to place it over here. Okay, let's make it a bit bigger. So I don't want the bars to be very long. I want them to be short. So we're going to do it like that, okay? And now inside the status bar area, we're going to create a new empty object and we're going to call it health bar container. Or maybe just health bar, but I think it's a better name because it actually contains all of the other layers. So inside of this one, we're going to create another object and we're going to call it background. So this will be the background of the health bar. And then inside the health bar, we're going to create another object and we're going to call it fill area. And then inside the fill area, we're going to create the fill itself. And we're also going to create a UI text. Okay, so the text will display the amount of health points we have left. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is just stretch and create the size of this bar. So we're going to go into the health bar itself and we're going to position it somewhere, let's say over here. We also need to make sure that all the other bars will fit inside the status bar area. So we can see this little outline over here. That's the status bar area. And the other outline is the UI itself. So let's place it over here. And when we found our desired position, let's say over here, we simply need to stretch all the other children to be the exact size of this health bar container. Okay, so it's something I'm going to do now. And the text itself. Okay, so the text, we can also center it in the middle by clicking on these two buttons over here. We're going to make it bold. We're going to change the color to white. And the size is fine for now. We can also type some kind of placeholder, but of course we're going to change it from within our scripts. The other thing we want to do is click on these children and also anchor them to fit all of this area, right? So we're going to click on this button here. It will just stretch it and hold it in this area. So you can see these little triangles over here. We're going to do the same thing with the fill area. The next thing we're going to do is click on the health bar container and we're going to add a slider. So a slider is basically a component that can slide according to its value. Okay, this thing here is basically a slider. Okay, so when it's 0 or an empty value, then it's on the left side, and if it's a full value, then it's on the right side. And we're going to use this slider to create some kind of health bar. Of course, it won't look like this, but this is a slider if you don't know what the word means. Okay, so now inside this component, we're going to disable it and we don't want to make it interactable, and the transition will become none. Okay, so now we need to provide it with the fill rect. So the fill rect will simply be the filling that will move, right? And it's this filling over here. So we're going to take it and drag it inside the fill rect. Okay, and we're going to set the value to 1. Then we're going to go and click on the background and we're going to add an image component and we're going to change the color to some kind of dark black color. Okay, so this will be the background of the health bar. So when the health bar is depleted, this is the color we're going to see. And then we're also going to click on the fill and we're going to add an image as well. Okay, so now it's red and we can also resize it a bit. So we want the background to provide some kind of outline. Okay, so again, it's not something you have to do, but I want the background to be the outline. Of course, you can also just add an outline, but I'm going to do it this way. So now we have some kind of health bar. Okay, so now that we have the health bar, all we need to do is click on it, and Control D, duplicate it 2 more times, and then we're going to change its name to calories bar container and hydration bar container. So this will be our version of an energy bar or a food bar, and this will be our version of the hydration bar that usually exists in survival games. Okay, so now let's take the calories bar, click on it, and move it underneath the health bar, and then take the hydration and also place it in its spot. And then we're going to click on the calories bar, go inside the fill, and change the color to something maybe like a yellow color, and do the same thing with the hydration, fill, and change it to something blue. Okay. Now we have these 3 different status bars. We have the health bar, calories bar, and hydration bar. The next thing we want to do is actually make it work. Okay. So to make it work, we need to create some scripts. So let's go into our assets and into the scripts. And here we're going to create a script called health bar, a script called calories bar, a script called hydration bar, and also a script called player status. Or not player status, let's delete that. Let's call it player state. Okay, so this will be a singleton. It will be an object in our game, and it will hold all of the states that the player has. So for example, it will hold the health, the calories, the hydration. So when these things will change, the variable itself will change inside of this player state, and then we can reference it anywhere we want. So let's create this object, create empty, and let's call it player state system. Okay, so we know it's a system. So it's the same way we created the inventory system and crafting system. So we're going to click on the player state system, and we're going to drag the player state script over here. Of course, right now it's empty, but we're going to create it later. Now let's go into our health bar. Okay. So you probably noticed that the color scheme is not the one we had in the previous episode, and that's right, it's just because I changed my computer and I need to configure all the colors once again, and I didn't want to spend time on it right now, so I'm going to do it later. So let's remove these things. Let's make it a bit bigger. And now we're going to say that we're using Unity Engine UI because we want to reference UI elements. And then inside of the health bar, we're going to create a public slider, right? It's public because we're going to want to reference it, okay? And public text health counter. Also, we're going to want to drop over here the actual text, so we're going to be able to change it from within our code. Then we're going to have a public game object that is going to be our player state, right? We are going to reference the actual health from within this player state, and we're going to change the slider according to the values of the health, right? And then we're also going to have 2 private floats, the current health and the max health. Okay, so now inside the awake, we're going to take the slider from this object. Okay, slider get component slider, because this script will be attached to our container, our health container, and then we're going to get the component, the slider component from our health container, right? And then we're going to be able to change its values. And then inside the, well, actually we can make it awake, okay? And then inside the update, we're going to set the current health and the max health, okay? Current health equals to player state get component player state. Okay, so we're going to get the player state over here, a reference to it, and then we're going to get the health from within the player state. Current health. Right now, we still did not create this property inside of the player state, so it tells us there's nothing like that, but we're going to fix that later. Max health, and we're going to do the same thing. And then we're going to create some kind of local variable that will be the fill value, okay? And the fill value will basically be the current health divided by the max health, right? So what's going on here? The way the slider is working is that it runs between the value of 0 and 1. So 0 is empty and 1 is full, right? So on 0, the slider will be on the left side, and on 1, the slider will be on the right side. So everything in between will actually be the different values of the slider. So for example, we have a full health, so it's going to be 100 current health, okay, and 100 max health. So then when we divide them, it's going to be 1, right? So it means that the slider is on the right side, and it means that the health is filled, right? It's full. But then, for example, we get hit by some enemy, then the current health will be, let's say, 90, and the max health will be 100. The 90 divided by 100 will be 0.9, and it means that our slider will move a bit to the left, okay? And this is the way it's going to work. So here we simply define what it means, fill value. So fill value is basically when we divide the current health by the max health, and then we're going to actually change the slider component. We're going to change its value with the fill value itself. So if the fill value is 0.9, the slider will move to 0.9, okay? And of course, we also want to set the actual text, so we're going to visually see how many hit points we have. So health counter text equals to current health and max health, right? And that's simple, right? Because we want to see something like that when we have full health, and then when we take damage, it goes down. So this is this, okay? And all of this will happen in the update method. It means that it will happen every frame, and it will always look for these values, right, within the player state. So when they change inside the player state, they will change here, and then this will change, and it will set the slider's value in real time, right? And it will also change the text in real time. And of course, now it tells us that there's some kind of problem. It looks for current health inside of player state, but there's no current health inside player state. So let's take care of that. And inside the player state, we're going to first turn it into a singleton, right? Like we did before. So public static player state instance, and then we need to create these getters and setters, and we're going to create the awake. Let's just borrow it from the inventory system or the crafting system. We have this awake that looks and checks if it's actually the only instance in our game, and if it's not, it's going to destroy it. So this is a way we make sure that it's a singleton, okay? So let's paste it over here. Actually, let's first create a void awake, and we're going to paste it inside, right? So this is something we create in every singleton. So now we created a singleton over here, and let's take care of the properties. So player health. Then we're also going to have player calories and player hydration. So for now, we're going to deal with the player's health. So we're going to have a public float current health and a public float max health. We don't really have to make it public, but we do want to see it in the inspector for testing and things like that, so we can leave it public, okay? And then inside the start method, I don't know why I deleted it. Let's just collapse this one. Void start. We're going to set the current health to be equals the max health, right? Because when we start the game, the max health is 100, so we also want the current health to be 100, right? Before we take any damage or anything. So that's all for now in the player state. Well, we can also create a player calories if we're here. So current calories and max calories. Let's also create the hydration, current hydration and max hydration. Okay, hydration. We can also say that it's like a percent. And current max hydration percent. Okay, because this will be in percentage. The health is basically also in percentage, but maybe we're going to have the option to increase our max health. So we don't want to make it into percentage, but this will be percentage. It will be, it doesn't have to be float, but we're storing it inside a float because the slider needs to receive a float, right? 0.9, 0.6. So we're going to leave it as a float. So now let's save this. Let's go into our game. And we're going to click on the player state and we're going to set the max health to 100, the max calories to 2000, and the max hydration percent to 100. So now we're going to go into the health bar container and we're going to drop the health bar script on the container. So we're going to take the health bar and drop it over here. And then it looks for a few things. It looks for the health counter. So it's a text. It's this text over here. We're going to drop it inside. And there's the player state, the singleton object. We're going to take it and drop it over here. Okay. And we don't really need a reference to the slider. Okay. But because the slider sits over here, so I don't know why I made it public. Let's just make it private because it doesn't make sense to show it in the inspector. So health bar, let's make it a private. Maybe there was a reason, but I don't remember the reason. Let's save this. Let's go back. Okay, we don't need to see the slider over here. So now if we run the game, we can see that we have 100 health points at the beginning of the game, right? And it looks nice. We can change the position. As I told you, we can also put a bit more time into making it look better, but for now it looks fine. The next thing we want to do is just to check if the slider actually works, right? Because right now we don't have any way to get hurt inside our game. We don't have any dangerous animals. So we do want to make sure it works. So to do that, we go into our player state, and inside the update method, we're going to do some kind of test. If down key code n, or m, and let's close this over here. So all I did here was say that if the user presses on the N key, then we're going to take 10 damage out of our current health, right? And if you don't know what this operator means, it simply means that current health equals to current health minus 10. Okay, so this and this, it's exactly the same, but it's some kind of short way to do it, and we can find it in many programming languages, if you didn't know that. So each time we're going to press on N, 10 points will go down. So let's see if it works, and it's just for testing the health bar. Okay, so if we forget about it later. So now let's run the game. And now I'm going to press on the N key, and we can see that our health is going down 10 each time. And of course, we still don't have any condition when it reaches 0 because we don't have any way to respawn or something like that. But we know that it works. Next, we're going to deal with the calories, okay? So inside the calories bar, we're basically going to do the same thing we did in the health bar. So we're going to go into the health bar. We're going to copy, well, basically everything, okay? Because we're lazy, we don't want to write everything all over again. And we're going to paste it inside the calories bar. And we're simply going to change the names. So, of course, we need to use Unity Engine UI. Then we're going to rename these things quickly. Okay, so I hope I changed everything. So it's going to do basically the same thing. When the current calories or the max calories change inside the player state, it will affect the slider and the slider will go down. But of course, the calories work differently. So calories can go down by different reasons. Of course, it depends on the game. In our game, each time the player will perform some kind of action, we're going to lose some calories. And that's really realistic, right? So I like it when it's more realistic. So when we're going to craft something, we're going to lose calories. When we're going to chop some wood or something like that, we're going to lose calories. And another thing we're going to do is when the player walks, simply walks, it will decrease the calories. So if you don't like this idea, simply don't use it in your game. But I think it's a fun thing. So if you want to go to a far village, you need to take into consideration that you're going to lose a lot of calories. Okay? So the way we're going to implement that is by going into our player state. And over here, we're going to add a few more properties. So we're going to create something that will store our distance, the distance that we traveled. So float distance traveled, okay? And it's going to be 0, right, at the beginning. And then we're also going to create a vector 3 that will hold the last position, because we always want to check where is the position of the player to see what is the distance he traveled, okay? And of course, I'm going to explain to you how it works. And then, of course, we're also going to create a reference for our player. So this is a reference to the actual player model. We need to check what is the position the actual model is positioned at, right? So public game object, player, or just player, okay? Or maybe player body. So now over here, of course, we forgot to also set the calories. So we say that current calories equals to max calories. And now we're going to do the logic that will make the calories go down when we walk, right? So I think we can, well, let's put it down. Let's leave it. And we're going to say something like that. Distance traveled, okay, will always increase, right? Each frame, it will run the update method. So each frame, the distance traveled will increase. And it will increase by the vector 3 distance. And the distance is the player body transform position and the last position. So it will always check what is the last position and where is the player at right now. So the distance between these 2 points will be our distance, and it will be added to the distance traveled. So if the player traveled for a certain amount of time, it will add all of these distances, right, into this variable over here. And then we'll also reset the last position, right? Because now the last position is no longer the last position we had in the beginning. So player body transform position. So the last position is now the current position, okay? And then we say if distance traveled bigger or equals 5, then simply the distance traveled is equal 0. So here we reset the distance traveled, and we say that current calories will be decreased by 1. So what we did here, when the player starts walking, the distance traveled will increase. So it will be 1, 2, 3, 4. When he reaches 5, so we also make sure that if it's bigger than 5, then it means that the player traveled a certain amount of distance, and then we're going to decrease 1 calorie from all of our calories, okay? So let's assume these are meters, right? So every 5 meters, the player will lose 1 calorie. And this is the place you can also customize it. If you think that's too extreme, right? You can always make it less. You can make it half a calorie every 5 meters, or maybe you can make it every 10 meters or every 20 meters, lose 1 calorie, right? And you're going to see how it actually feels, but this is what is going on over here. So each time the player crosses 5 meters, and it's not actually 5 meters, it's just 5 units of distance, then decrease 1 calorie, right? And then of course the calories will change inside this player state over here. And then inside the calories bar, when they are going to change, we're simply going to get them over here and we're going to change the slider. Okay, so all of this will happen in real time. So let's save this and let's go back into our game. Oh, of course, we need to assign the player state to the calories bar. And of course the script itself, I forgot about that. Calories bar, let's take the text itself and the player state. So now let's run. And now we can see that we're starting with 2000 calories and we're not moving. But when we're starting to move, it should go down. Let's see what's going on. Oh, right, the player body. We need to put the player body. So we go to the actual player and we drag it over here. So inside our singleton player state, we need a reference to our player, right? It's something I forgot. So now let's run. And we can see that we're starting with 2000 and it actually removed 1 calorie because I guess it thought that we're moving. But now when we're actually moving, it removes 1 calorie each time. And when we're stopping, So it's not actually running some kind of counter and it checks if we're moving. And if we're moving, the counter starts or something like that. No, it actually checks what is the amount of distance that we traveled. So that's why we can customize it. We can make it go down slower because you see it's not really 5 meters. So if we just move 1 meter, it goes down by 1 calorie. Okay? So we can customize it and maybe later we're going to fine tune it. But it's not a lot, but think about it. If you have a village far away, then you need to make sure you have enough food, right, inside the inventory to be able to consume it and refill your calories. Then we can say that if the calories are depleted, then you're in starvation mode and then your health will go down or something like that, right? So there's a lot of things we can do. There's a lot of ways we can play with it. The last thing we want to take care of in this episode is the hydration bar. So we go inside the script, hydration, and we do again the same thing. We copy all of this. We paste it over here. Okay, so all I did was change the names to be hydration, and then I referenced the current hydration percent and the max hydration percent from the player state. Okay, because the slider and this hydration bar works the same way. It simply gets the values from within the player state and it changes the UI, right? So now inside the player state, we want to create some kind of way for the hydration to go down. So to do this counter, there's a lot of ways, but we're going to use a coroutine, okay? So a coroutine is basically some block of code that runs separately from the main code, right? It's something that runs on a background thread, and this way, it doesn't matter what happens in the meanwhile, it will always run this code on a background thread and it will not interfere with anything that happens on the main thread, right? So to do that, we go into the start method and we say start coroutine and we give the name of the coroutine. We're going to call it decrease hydration, okay? And now we're going to create this coroutine over here. So I enumerator, that's the way we're going to create a coroutine. We're going to give it the name. And of course, need to do this. And here we're going to say while true, okay? So it's basically always going to be true unless we create some kind of local boolean. So let's say we want to disable the hydration from coming down. For example, when we're swimming, right? We don't want the hydration to go down when we're swimming or maybe when we're doing something specific. So we can create a local boolean that will actually trigger this coroutine, right? So we can decide from outside of the script if we want the hydration to go down or not, okay? So right now it will always be true because we did not create any kind of special boolean to place over here. We simply want it to always go down. And later we can change it. So while true, it means always. The current hydration percent should go down by 1, okay? And to make it actually happen every few seconds, we need to say yield return new wait for seconds, and then we need to specify the seconds. So here you can decide how many seconds. So we're going to say, let's say 2 seconds. So every 2 seconds, okay, every 2 seconds, 1% of our hydration will go down. And this will always run, okay? unless we create some kind of, let's just do it. I don't know if we're going to use it, but public bool, and let's call it hydration trigger, right? No, is hydration active. Okay, and here we can later use it and place it over here. So when we change is hydration active, it will actually stop or run this coroutine. But right now, we just want it to always run. And now let's see how it works. Let's save this and go back into our game. And let's go to the player state system. And we have 100% for dehydration. Then let's go to the hydration bar and add the hydration script. Where's the hydration script? Okay, and here we need to do the same thing, reference the text and also reference the player state system. And now let's run the game and hope everything works. So now we can see that, well, it works, but for some reason it started at 0. Oh, I know why. Let's go back into our script. Because here we did not say that the current calories, the current hydration is equals the max hydration. So it started at 0. That's why we need to do it. So now we go back into the game. So now it will start at 100. And we can see that every 2 seconds, and it doesn't matter if we move or not, every 2 seconds, the hydration goes down. And I think it's a bit too steep, right? It's maybe if we had a hardcore difficulty in this game, because that's too fast. So let's just fine tune it a bit. Let's go over here and say that every maybe 10 seconds. Of course, later when we add more things, we can actually change it as we build the game to see what works better. Let's say every 10 seconds. No, let's say, well, yeah, every 10 seconds go down by 1%. We just want to make sure that it still works and we don't want to wait 20 seconds to see if it actually changes. So let's wait 10 seconds. And yeah, it goes down. So of course we can also do something else. Instead of showing this thing, we can go over here inside the hydration bar and we can change it to actually display, right? Because 100% is 100%. We don't need to say 100%, but we can just do it like that. And then inside the game, we're going to actually see it in percentage. Yeah, so I think it's a better way to reflect the hydration stat. So we covered all of these status bars. Of course, it really depends on your game, but we're going to go with these ones. Maybe later we're going to add more bars. Maybe we're going to have some kind of stamina bar that will only decrease when we run or do any intensive actions. But that's all for now. So in the next episode, we're going to work a bit on our inventory screen. Okay, let's just disable this. We do have our inventory, but right now it doesn't look good. And there's a lot of things we still need to implement. For example, if we have an item and we want to get some information about this item. So usually we can just put our cursor on the item and it will show some information, right? So we're going to do that in the next episode. We're going to be able to see some kind of description for the item. And we're also going to be able to right click on the item if the item is a consumable, and then the item will be consumed. So we're going to do it with food. Okay, we're going to create some kind of food, maybe a mushroom or some kind of berry, and we're going to be able to pick it up. And then in the inventory, when we're going to click on it, it will refill our calories. Okay, so that's something we're going to do next. Of course, we can also implement a way to actually get rid of items, because right now, if we pick up stuff, the only way to get rid of it is if we craft something using this item. But what if we have a lot of junk and we find some kind of valuable resource? So we usually want to get rid of the junk and carry the valuable, right? So we're going to have some kind of trash can over here that we can simply drag the item and it will just discard this item. And that's what we're going to work on in the next episode. So thank you for watching. It was really fun to work on this series. I really missed that. And I really hope to make more episodes more frequently. So please subscribe if you want to get notified each time a new episode comes out. Of course, I have other things on my channel. I have things that are related to mobile development and things like that. So there's a lot of coding involved in my channel because I like coding, I like development, and I think that a good developer should know more than just one framework and more than one coding language, because it's basically always the same, just different syntaxes. But if you're good at one, you can also be good at the other. Of course, it depends on if you're really interested in mobile development or any other topics that will be there. But just know that it's not the only subject that is going to exist on my channel. So sometimes you're going to see me uploading things that are not related to Unity, but that's just fine. Maybe in the future, I'm going to decide what is the main focus of my channel. But right now, it's still a small channel. I barely have 60 subscribers. So I really want to see what people are looking for, right? So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.